assalamu alaikum, good morning, khushamdi, jayanu, goedemorgen, ishpata.
Pakhair Angele, Ni Hao, Chunashumme, Washmale, Ohio Gonzaimes, Guten Morgen, Hola, Bonjour, Privyet, Kaifahal, Hale Shuma Chatore, Ahlan Wasalan, Marhaba, Buna, Mucho, Gracias, Swabia, Balli Kareaya, Marhaba, and thank you very much everybody for tuning into PTV World. You watching World this morning, and also the very fantastic, the very amazing, the very stunning, the very, I think, superb Shiza Hashmi and Shahzad Ehsan Khan. Hello Shiza, how are you doing today?
I'm doing absolutely great. Thank you so much for asking. But what about you? How was your long weekend?
Well, it wasn't really a long weekend, since, I think everybody decided to get married in March.
I know,
Yeah,
right?
so there's a lot of weddings taking place. First of all, I would love to congratulate my friend Shuja Gondal. He recently got married yesterday. In fact, it was his barat, and unfortunately, I couldn't attend. I was there for you on your Mendi, bro. Please make sure that you don't take it personal. Because, this is what friends do. You don't show up, bro, I'm not going to talk to you. Please don't do that. Other than that, alhamdulillah, my nephew's getting married today. So, there was a lot of work which needs to be done. And being the eldest son of the family, I think I kind of wanted to contribute as well. So I'm very sorry to all of those people who actually regularly tune into our show. And the best part, that I've actually started to get tweets from elsewhere in the world, so I'm not going to name the countries because there were a lot of countries and they're like, hey, you know what, we're watching your show and we want to be on your show. And it feels wonderful and we really want to have you. So whenever you're in Pakistan, please let us know because we don't give away tickets.
No, absolutely, but definitely people who are making a good name for Pakistan, anything contributing towards the prosperity of the country, we love to discuss it.
Exactly.
So if you know any such person or even if yourself, do let us know like you do.
But I have a question for you.
Before the question, Shahzad, because you spoke about weddings.
Yeah.
Well, of
That's
course,
the question.
Okay,
That's the question.
Okay,
yeah.
go ahead.
Okay, so my question is, how was it today coming to work? Was it rushy?
Oh, it was not even, you know what, I hate to admit it, I really hope my boss isn't watching, but I even stepped out of my house late because yesterday when I did come to work, I did realize the roads were empty.
Yeah.
Oh my God, peace is back again. Well, I know this is something that we take pleasure in because of course the roads are empty, but this is really a very sort of a severe point for Pakistan to come to, and unfortunately we have come to it. Just yesterday, Shahzad, I was telling our audiences that as compared to September last year, where there was a 2% increase in corona cases, generally speaking, in Pakistan, we are now at a 6% increase. And that is insane because now we have various strains from all over the world.
Exactly. And, adding on to that, I think that one way or the other, we kind of, we acted like pigeons, ladies and gentlemen, because we knew that it was there. And we just closed our eyes because the kitten was standing right in front of us. So earlier it was this tourism festival which took place over here in Islamabad. I'm sorry that a lot of government officials were involved in it and they knew that we have COVID around and why everybody was given that permission that, okay, everybody can do that event. And, similar to that, right when the tourism festival, I'm not saying that I'm against tourism festival, but no SOPs were followed. Everybody was roaming around very freely. And we thought that, okay, life is normal, but it wasn't. And then just by looking at them, Islamabad taste took place as well, where nobody was following any SOPs.
Right.
And that, imagine that, we are doing these big, massive wedding events, and we've allowed everything. So obviously it's going to increase. And, we really are not even sure about the vaccine ourselves and we're too scared to get the vaccine. So I think that we really need to kind of focus on all of these areas so that people out there, they learn from our show and they make sure that they spread the word of mouth.
Absolutely. And Shahzad, where you said that it is people were blindly definitely enjoying the recreation and whatnot, it is because of that very reason that now all the public places again are locked up, in lockdown rather, and schools, universities closed again. Everything literally in terms of weddings, there's no indoor weddings allowed. There's certainly only a few number of people who can attend an outdoor wedding, that too only for 2 hours. There are different parts of Islamabad along with other parts in Punjab which are in proper lockdown. Shops are to close by 7 p.m. In some places even later than that. But the good news is, Shahzad, Pakistan is set to receive about 14.6 million doses of the vaccine.
Wow.
So now it is up to the public to actually go grab them, right?
Exactly. Not just that, I think that, they did a wonderful job. The government took a great initiative where they wanted, people above 80, first of all, to get their doses as well. And they come down, making their way to, step 2 was towards the people who were actually above 60 years old. And the solution is very simple. All you have to do is that you actually have to send your ID card number to 1166 and they're going to call you for the vaccine. But that's not it. You know, there was a controversy about the Chinese vaccine which came to our country as well, where people started saying that it's saline water, you know, the vaccine is not fine and it has repercussions on your health as well. So we wanted to talk about it because, ladies and gentlemen, so far, you know, when we look at a population of 220 million, I think what we really need to do is that we really need to focus on that, you know, only 500,000 people have registered for vaccines with 13,000 deaths since the pandemic has broken out. So I think we really need to talk about it, whether all of these controversies, should we believe in them or not, should we not get vaccinated. We're very lucky that we've actually been joined by somebody all the way from Canada who happens to be a practicing pulmonologist. And well, this is a little tough for me to describe as well, because this is for the very first time that I've heard that there's a speciality that people who actually look after people who are in intensive care unit are actually known as intensivists. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're lucky that we've actually been joined by Dr. Abdul Qadoos Anwar Saab. Hello, sir. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning.
Good morning. Assalamu alaikum. How are you?
Absolutely perfect, and thank you very much for joining us. So, first things first, when we see sudden rise, you know, an alarming rise, what do you think that the countries really need to go back to? Because speaking about Canada, for that matter, Canada, US, or Europe, you know, these were the countries which were hit hard by COVID as well. And if we compare Pakistan with Canada, that won't be very justifiable, because, you know, over here, you know, the death ratio was very low as well. Alhamdulillah, we were lucky enough. So what are the SOPs which we really need to follow as soon as we see an alarming rise?
Well, it's all going back to the basics. If you look at, even if you compare US against Canada, the fact that the Canada followed very strict guidelines and we were able to curtail the virus remarkably well. For example, in the province that I was practicing in, at maximum we had about 160 positive cases. At maximum we had only a handful of patients in the intensive care unit. So we did extremely well, and the reason for that was because there was a very, very strict adherence to the guidelines.
Yeah.
The guidelines are very simple, that if you have been exposed to a patient who is COVID positive, if you have traveled out of the country, or if you have traveled into any high endemic area, you strictly quarantine yourself for 14 days.
Yeah.
If you're outside, wear a mask. If you're going to be within 6 feet of anybody, wear a mask. If you're going to be in a crowded place, wear a mask. Wash your hands. The virus spreads, basically it's a droplet infection. Now, there's now some controversy whether it's an aerosol infection, but predominantly it remains a droplet infection. That means that when somebody coughs or sneezes, the virus goes in the form of droplets, and that droplet spread to different surfaces. It can go on your hands. So the biggest inoculation, of course, is when you breathe it directly. So if you're wearing a mask, even a simple cloth mask, it protects you from that inoculation.
Exactly.
And if it is on your hands, if you're wearing a mask, of course, you're not going to transfer it to your face.
Yeah.
The only way the virus can actually gain entry through to you is through your mouth or to your nose and your eyes. So if you stop touching your nose, mouth, and eyes, especially if you're protected with a mask, it's not going to happen. So as long as you just follow these simple guidelines, you can curtail this infection quite a bit, and that is very evident if you look at, for example, our province, which I was practicing in. We were case-free for about 8 months. We never had a patient of COVID for almost 8 months.
Wow.
Before the second wave hit. Places like New Zealand, where strict SOPs were followed.
There's no single case of COVID now.
And so they were able to get themselves virus-free. But that only happens to very, very strict control.
Exactly.
Now, of course, you can't compare those countries to us because of the population. We are sparsely populated places, and here the population density is very high. And, of course, people don't follow those guidelines as strictly as they should. And that's why we are seeing these cases to go up again and again and again.
Exactly, that's true. And you know, talking about that, this is very true, ladies and gentlemen, that, you know, over here an entire mohalla actually lives in one house. You know, so, you know, even within one house, you cannot stop the spread of COVID as well, and we've gone through that. And we have seen similar cases. But now, I think what people have started to ask is that, alhamdulillah, people who haven't got it, I think that's perfectly fine, that they have been taking all those precaution measures. But do you think that anyone can be reinfected with the same virus once we've gone through that? And how
yes.
long does it take?
Is it the same virus now?
Well, again, the natural history of any viral infection is the virus mutate, and so is it with COVID.
Yeah.
And COVID has mutated, and we are seeing these newer strains come out. There's the Great Britain strain, and there's the South African strains. And the bad part is that those strains are much more infectious, and they're much more lethal as well. The good thing is that some of the vaccines that have actually been tested, they seem to have a good efficacy against those strains as well. So the vaccines do provide protection against the newer strains as well. And we are seeing, because of course, of the global traveling, we are still seeing those strains make our way to Pakistan and other parts of the world as well. So we are going to see those strains come here. So it is extremely important that we follow the basic guidelines.
Absolutely.
As was as you said about reinfection, the reinfection does occur,
Okay.
right? So, and again, the fact that you are infected does not mean that you should not get the vaccine. You still have to get the vaccine. The protection that you get after an infection is short-lived, and it tends to wean off. So there's a very high chances that if you don't follow guidelines, you can get reinfected and you can get seriously ill, even if you hadn't gotten seriously ill in the first place. So just the fact that you beat it the first time doesn't mean that you're going to beat it again and again and again. So it's not good to play Russian roulette with it, right? So don't take your chances. Get yourself vaccinated. Even if you were infected before, take all the precautions. So those are important facts to take home.
Thank you so much for saying that, Dr. Saab, because yeah, some people really needed to hear that. But now you mentioned vaccines and different types of it. Let's come to that. There are so many questions we have about it. But just to mention, this is the second phase of vaccination going on in our country, ladies and gentlemen. The first one was very proactively directed towards frontline workers, and they did receive, well, quite some doses. But Shahzad, yes, receiving 200,000 doses for the frontline workers, that only makes 0.09 out of, well, 10 doses if we talk about in terms of population. I don't think it's a good number. It's not even, well, 3 out of 10. I would like to see that, because since we are really populated. But now about the vaccines. Good news is, from today onward, the government has actually made sure that people above 70, after you've just sent a message to 1166 with your CNIC, anytime, any day, you can choose to go to any center, and walk-in vaccination is available for you. Isn't that a good thing?
From today onwards?
From today onwards, absolutely.
So where are these centers?
They have an entire list. They either send it to you on your SMS after you send your CNIC number, or I think you can even Google it on the NCOC website as well. But I'm not really the right person to give out, because right now I don't know. So about the vaccines, sir, there are different types, and like Shahzad mentioned, people have their reservations with different types as well. Let's talk about the first one, the Chinese one, which is now mostly available in Pakistan. Should people be feeling safe with it?
It is the most well-tested form of vaccine. It is a dead virus vaccine.
Right,
And
right.
it is, most of the studies that have come out have shown it to be very, very safe. China itself administered more than 1 million doses, and there were only a handful of side effects associated with it.
Okay.
So it is a fairly safe vaccine. Now, it is you have to give it a fact that it is not as efficacious as the newer vaccine that were put out by Pfizer or by Moderna, and most of the studies showed its efficacy to be, depending on which study you look at, it from 50 to 80%.
Okay.
But still, it does provide a good level of coverage for most of the population. So most of the myths about the vaccines are not true. They're just myths, and they're just conspiracy theories.
Okay.
So I would strongly urge anybody who is thinking should go ahead and get themselves vaccinated. I myself got myself vaccinated the very first time, and alhamdulillah, I was protected by it. And even though I have traveled and I've been actively seeing patients with COVID, I was able to stay away from the infection. So it does make a huge difference.
So yeah,
And
let's
now our
talk about
president
that
and the
as well.
first lady
Yes,
even,
alhamdulillah.
yes, they've even got vaccinated as well. And I see a lot of celebrities going up to get registered, just to make sure, just to sort of set example for the people.
But I
that
think
it's
we
safe.
cannot register as of now, right? Because,
We
you know,
can't,
there
but
are different phases.
I'm talking about overage celebrities.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's perfectly fine as well. But sir, let's talk about your experience as well. You know, when you got the vaccine, because they say that you feel a little feverish, you don't feel perfectly all right once you get the COVID vaccine as well. I want to talk about that. And what about people who have preconditions? For example, people over here in Pakistan are diabetic, they have hypertension, they have heart issues. You know, they might even have lung issues for that matter as well, you know.
The only contraindication for getting the vaccine is people who have had very serious allergic reaction to previous vaccinations.
Okay.
So
Any
that is-
sort.
right? So the people who have had anaphylaxis and serious allergic reactions when they were previously vaccinated with either a flu shot or a pneumo vaccine, and they had serious reactions to that, that's the only contraindications to it. The Chinese virus vaccine is also not recommended for people who are over 60. AstraZeneca vaccine is recommended for those. For in Pakistan, AstraZeneca.
Thank
is
you very much for saying that. That Chinese vaccine is actually not for people over 60 years of age.
Right. It is not recommended for pregnant women.
Oh.
Right. So the pregnant women should not get the vaccine. We don't have the safety data yet. There are
Okay.
studies ongoing, but still for now we don't have the safety data available for pregnant women.
But sir, just a moment in that. What I wanted to clear over here is that you're not talking in terms of how the practice is in Canada. Are you referring to Pakistan as well, that the Chinese vaccine will?
We don't have data.
Okay, we don't have data.
So whenever, in medicine, the rule of the thumb is you always err on the side of safety.
Okay.
Right? So as long as we don't have data, I would not recommend a pregnant woman to go ahead and get a vaccine.
Wonderful.
Because we don't have data.
Exactly.
Right? We don't know what it's going to do. The other contraindications are very rare. The other anybody who's actively getting chemotherapy, anybody who is on very
Even
high,
if it's oral chemo?
even if it's oral chemo.
Okay.
They shouldn't.
They
So
shouldn't
it's
be
not for me, I think.
right. So for anybody who is on high doses of immunosuppressant, especially if it's a short-term course. For example, if anybody is on a 4-week course of steroids, they can wait for 4 weeks and get the vaccine afterwards. For people who are on long-term immunosuppressants or even transplant patients, they can still go ahead and get the vaccine. The vaccine may not be as efficacious in those patients, but it's still safe for them to get it.
Okay.
So if you're on a short-term immunosuppressive therapy, then you should wait for the immunosuppressive therapy to stop, and then you can go ahead and get the vaccine. But if you're on long-term immunosuppressant, then it's okay for you to go ahead and get the vaccine. It's just that the vaccine is not going to work as well.
Okay.
But there's no safety issues with that. So the vaccine those are very handful of people. For majority of the population, for people who have pre-existing heart conditions, lung conditions, people who have structural lung diseases, pulmonary fibrosis, asthmatics, obstructive lung diseases, it's all the more important because they are high risk of dying with COVID. So it is more important for them, diabetics, it's more important for them to go ahead and actually get the vaccine because it will protect them from a potentially lethal infection.
And people with renal conditions as well?
Again, for more important for them to get it because they are at high risk of actually getting a very serious infection. So it is safe for them to go ahead and get the disease.
Wow.
Brilliant.
Wonderful.
Now, one last thing, it's sort of a basic question as well, but I've seen this rotating in my family even and, in friends as well, that because of the weather change, a lot of people are now getting the seasonal flu, right? But we're so casual, Shahzad, literally anyone who is sick, God forbid, I'm not saying that it should be COVID, but we just tend to say it's a seasonal flu and we have forgotten that it may or can be COVID. So how can you tell it apart? Or when,
but can
at
I
what
answer
point
it?
should you be worried?
Yeah, but can I answer it before you answer? Because
Okay.
this is a very common thing which I've heard after
Yes.
getting flu, because I got flu myself as well.
Same.
And they say that if you have runny nose, it's not COVID.
The
That's what they say.
Well,
Is
the simple and quick answer is you cannot. There is nothing that separates 86% of the people who actually get COVID have very mild or no symptoms. And they might just have low-grade fever or no fever.
Okay.
They may have just a little bit of cough, runny nose, right? Mild shortness of breath, again, may or may not have it. There's nothing in the symptoms that you can use to actually say and predict that this is COVID and this is not COVID.
There's
just
no
have to
black
get
or
tested.
white.
You have to get yourself tested.
Got it.
And the problem is that the testing, initially the testing may not be positive because the incubation period for COVID is long.
Okay.
So even if, so the most SOPs actually recommend that if you have flu-like symptoms and and especially if you haven't been exposed to a COVID patient, you should self-isolate.
All right.
Because you might have mild symptoms and get away with it, but you may spread it to elderly, to your loved ones who may actually succumb to the disease.
Exactly.
So
God forbid.
it's not just about yourself. Wearing a mask, it is not just about yourself, it's about the people
About
around you as
everybody.
well.
Yes,
Absolutely.
that's true. Well, thank you very
Amazing.
much, Dr. Abdul Qudus sir, for being with us. It was lovely to be in conversation with you, and
you.
thank you very much for making our audiences aware of what they really need to do in these conditions as well. And since we go out in 46 different countries, I think you're pretty much useful for every country people are watching us in.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
It
so
was a
much for
pleasure.
being so enlightening actually, and informative early in the morning as well. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the second phase of vaccination going on. If you have any loved ones, family members, parents, grandparents, anyone above the age of 60, go register them. You will get a message of letting you know what the center for them is going to be. Please get them vaccinated because, well, being safe is better, right? I mean, now is the time, of course. I feel like we're sort of really relaxing on the fact that the reported number of cases of mortality are even low as compared to, well, Europe or US. But for those who it has happened in terms of families and friends, it's a really hard time to go through. So please be sure that not for your own self, but for the people around you as well, you stay safe and you wear a mask.
Exactly. We're going for a short break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with something very interesting. I have a question for you.
Okay.
But after a short break.
Stay tuned. Good morning.
Passion for polo will be the highest on the world's highest polo ground. Chandur invites visitors to experience a traditional polo tournament between the teams of Chitral and Gilgit. The tournament is held on Chandur Pass, the highest polo ground in the world, at 3,700 meters above sea level. The first time a polo tournament took place on the Chandur Pass was in 1936. It is a place unique and exotic in itself, surrounded by some of the most spectacular mountain scenery in the world. The event marks the annual rivalry between the teams of Chitral and Gilgit. The polo tournament has some added attractions for the visitors: trout fishing at the nearby streams and lakes, and a festival of folk dances and music of northern Pakistan. The event in itself offers a fascinating insight into the lifestyle of the people of this region. Their culture and indigenous customs are a delight to behold for the visitors. Crystal clear lakes, snow-covered mountains, alpine flowers, and vast stretches of green grass are added attractions. Fairs and festivals of Pakistan.
Welcome back to Well This Morning, ladies and gentlemen, with Shazad Khan and Shiza Hashmi, where today we were really determined to sort of let everyone know that there is vaccination available for people over the age of 60. Get registered, get vaccinated, and well, stay healthy and stay safe.
Exactly, that's what we want for everybody who's out there, ladies and gentlemen, whether you watch our show or not, because that's how clean we are at heart. But before going towards the short break, I had a very interesting question for Shiza.
Yeah.
Which I was thinking about that I think that I'm going to ask you, and yes, so here it is. I'm going to shoot it right away, and that is that, do you think that there is something as too much?
As in?
Because I've started to feel that there's nothing like too much, and I don't want people to say too much as well. It totally
such a
depends
vague question.
It totally, yeah, and which is why I'm asking you, because this is not an ordinary question anybody would ask. We go around places and we're like, oh yeah, you know what, this is too much. I think that there is nothing as too much.
I have so many answers to this, Shazad.
Go ahead,
All right. So
Yeah.
let me just say, let's begin with the simplest. If you're talking in terms of your tiyari, let's say in terms of jewelry, makeup, or clothes, for me, less is more. There is a too much.
There's nothing like too much, man.
There is definitely a too much. Secondly, openly or generally speaking as well, there are so many people who are going through bad times, Shazad. We don't know their stories, we don't know their journeys, or we don't know what sort of violence they might be going through.
Too much.
Too much. There can be too much. So
now you got
just because
me.
we're privileged doesn't mean that too much doesn't exist.
Exactly. But right now, ladies and gentlemen, since, throughout the previous week, we're making sure that, we're going to celebrate the women of Pakistan over here, and, we're going to let people know and let women inspire a lot of our audiences as well. So I think what we did today was that we wanted to continue with that legacy of our producer, because he's the one man army we rely on as well, to be very honest.
Yes,
And
that's true.
he always comes up with some brilliant ideas, Jamshed Sultan Sahab. So he thought that we have covered so many different areas, why not cover the constitutional rights women has over here in Pakistan? And we thought that it was a brilliant idea, because when we talk about rights to property, or when how the law protects according to the constitution, a lot of women are actually not aware of what their constitutional rights are. And not just that, on top of that, because throughout this pandemic we have seen that there has been an increase, 70% increase in domestic violence.
Yes.
God forbid, and that is too much. Okay, within this criteria, I think too much does really exist. What we really need to do is that we really need to talk about this dilemma that where, okay, God forbid, even if a lady is actually going to call a police station and the police is going to come to their place, they'll be like, Baji, aapke ghar ka masla hai. Hey, come on, you know what, the law protects her, just like the law protects men as well. So why not make sure that the lady is actually able to exercise her rights? I think this is one thing we wanted to talk about.
And Shazad, I really felt like at this point we needed to have, we have spoken about it, of course, constitutional rights, but again to talk about it, because this was yesterday, I came across this news, I shared with you as well, and it's sort of, it raised a lot of questions. Of course it broke my heart, but it raised a lot of questions in my mind. So this was 2 years ago. Unfortunately, a minor girl, I don't want to get into the details of it, a minor girl was raped by a religious cleric. And just yesterday, the punishment was announced for that person after 2 years. And, well, the punishment did include a small sentence for the person to serve in jail, but it also included some monetary fine, which the child can actually retract from the account upon sort of reaching the age of 18. You know what I mean? But Shazad, imagine, God forbid, something terrible happens to you, and then for 2 years, you have to wait for the judiciary to, well, pay heed to it. For 2 years, you have to wait for the decision. And then for so many years to have to wait, and then you can access the grant that you got for being violated. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I don't know, it's sort of a gray area for me. It raises so many questions. But my point being, there are definitely rights given to women, like you already mentioned, in our country. It's just that mostly we are not aware of them. So let's learn it. So, I mean, we know what to do.
And she said, not just that, I'm going to give you another example where I don't know whether you are following TCM or not, because I watched this video on TCM where they were interviewing the former judges of the High Court and the Supreme Court as well. And then there was this one of the judge who said that, a very interesting and a very tough case came into his court where a lady was actually taken to, do a stamp paper, and she actually had to sign on a document, and it was taken by somebody, you know, who was actually familiar or from within the family as well.
Okay.
And they took her signature, and then, you know, week later or 2 weeks later, there was a guy who was claiming within the court that she's my wife and that she's not coming to my place. And then the judge Saab, you know, alhamdulillah, that he had that wisdom. Alhamdulillah, we truly believe in the judiciary because of the people
Definitely.
they have within their system as well. So he said that, you know, I've gone through such similar cases that people take such, you know, or they forge signatures as well. And he was like that it was very difficult because the man actually wanted him to, you know, kind of give the order that the lady really needs to go to his place as well. And he was like that I didn't do that. And,
So
you
unfortunate.
know, unfortunately, you know, they realized, you know, at a later stage that the signatures were forged and whatnot. So imagine what women go through over here in Pakistan, ladies and gentlemen. Not just that, just a few days ago, there was this news as well that, you know, that a woman under anesthesia and, you know, that there
Yeah,
were
oh
people who were
God,
doing
oh
very, you know, nasty things with her.
The
And
doctor.
doctors were doing that, and she started to scream as soon as she gained consciousness, and then there was somebody in the lobby. So imagine that going through all of this and still not getting to kind of be protected under the law. I think it's something where you would actually feel like dying anyways, God
Yeah,
forbid.
imagine having to see the doctor because you're not feeling well and not
Exactly.
being safe
So
seeing
we're
the
raising
doctor.
our voices, ladies and gentlemen. We'll continue to do so, and we're very lucky that we've actually been joined by two amazing lawyers who happen to be women by themselves as well. The number one over here is Miss Samia Shaheen. Hello, assalamu alaikum. Good morning.
Walaikum assalam.
How are you?
I'm fine.
Thank you very much for
having
joining
me.
us. It's
Thank
wonderful to
you.
have you alongside Miss Samia. Ladies and gentlemen, we're lucky that we've actually been joined by Gunwa Ejaz Khan. Hello, assalamu alaikum. Gunwa, how are you?
Walaikum assalam. Alhamdulillah, I'm good. I hope you two are doing well as well.
Absolutely perfect. Thank you very much for asking. Otherwise, people don't ask about us.
No one asks.
Yeah, but we were wonderfully well. So, Samia, you picked up on that you wanted to talk about rural areas and how the conditions are over there. First things first, we really need to know that how are women protected under the law according to our constitution.
See, women in our society, as well as the constitution, they give a right to women. All the right they have, and they are there. The problem is there, in especially the rural area, that women don't know about their rights. In urban areas, girls and child, they used to go to the school, colleges, parents give them very good upbringing. They have a very different sort of atmosphere in the house. They can easily enjoy themselves. You know, most of the time, you know, their parents allow them or make them in a such way, they brought them in a such way where they know about their rights, and they told their child that you have to be, you know, very careful in a society. There are some sort of rules for you, and you have to use them. In urban area, girls are, to some extent, I'm literally saying to some extent, they are safe and they know about their rights. But in rural area, they don't know that there is some sort of rights which are exist, and they can use it for their own benefits. You know, most of the time there is a law of, inheritance, there is a polygamy, there is a, domestic violence. They should know that if somebody is doing a malicious stuff or the malified intentions are coming towards you, people with the gray shades, you are able to do the, you have to use your rights and you can put them behind the bars.
Absolutely.
The worst part of it, that most of the time with the inheritance, like you are taking the, property from the, everybody, get the legacy from the parents, that you are taking a property from your, parents. But the siblings, or sometimes the man, in the dominant man in a society or in your family, somehow they are not able, or they never allow you to take it, because they said that, oh, she's a woman, she's a girl.
It's
That
basically
was
insecure.
their edge. The basic point is that was their edge. The fact is, there is a law, there is a, there is a judiciary who help you. Lawyer in our society, and especially us, we can help those women to go to the, to allow them or help them to go in a right direction, especially in judiciary law. We can emotionally, we can, judiciary, with our education, we can empower them, we can help them.
Of course.
To reach the, places like courts, we can help them in certain manners. And I
Definitely.
think that really helps our society, because I think in 2021, I think we should stop this, like women should, get their rights, which is the most
Definitely.
important thing.
But Samia, everything you said is well on point, definitely
Yeah.
right, and I really hope that we reach a time, and we see a time, Shazad,
Yeah,
in fact, where women are, rural women especially, are that informed. Where Shazad asked you, how can we tell them what their constitutional rights are? Generally speaking, you did say they have inheritance right, among other things as well. Do you know they don't even have the right to choose for their body? And I'm not generalizing, I'm going to tell you a real fact, Shazad. So for the past month, there has been a story going on in social media because of the Aurat March going on as well, where a woman had to, well, not according to her will, but she had to get her tubes tied, not to produce anymore because the family wanted so. And this weekend I was in my village, I told you, right? So a lot of women were sitting and I talked about the story. Can you believe, Shazad, one woman from my own extended family said that the same thing happened to her. Imagine, without letting her know, her mother-in-law and the husband said, we have to take you to the hospital, you're not feeling well. And she wasn't feeling well, so she went. And without letting her know, they tied her tubes, they got her operated, she cannot till date reproduce. Doesn't she have the right to choose for her own body? Now, this is the education I want for them. How can we do that?
I think, for every, these sort of points, we can raise that voice.
How? That's what I'm
So
saying.
we can go to the, judiciary, we can file a petition, we can go through the, courts, and definitely there are law bodies who will definitely help us in each and every manner, in each and every, this is just a one point you raise. These are different sort of points which probably they are not raised, but we can raise them like in a certain manner, and it's very easy for us to go over there, file a petition. Definitely there is a law body who will help us, allow us. They'll, definitely, they'll cut the FIR against the, the family of her, and of course they'll call them in a, courts, and they will definitely do their work in the proper manner.
Exactly, and I guess that's how it needs to be as well. But very quickly, there's this just one thing which came up to my head, and I'm going to move on to Gunva for that as well. And I think that we really need to bring about a change in that as well. Even as a man, when I go to a court, I don't feel really comfortable. You know how things are, how congested, those little streets are, and the environment. And even if you go to any associate, God forbid, in Kacheri, it's hard for you to get in and it's hard for you to get out. So I think that what we really need to focus on is making that environment so suitable for women that anybody can go and file a complaint, no?
Yeah, that's very something I agree with, because right now the district courts that are in the F8 locality of Islamabad, they're pretty congested because that is where they are temporarily. That's the building where they've been leased out. The courts are there. Similarly, the chambers are right near the courts. But according to the news and what I've heard recently, they're shifting the district courts to an area nearby, probably I think F5 if I'm not mistaken, or G5.
Oh no.
Probably, because recently what was decided was where the Islamabad High Court is, that was where the district court is going to be, and the Islamabad High Court is going to be relocated to a better.
That's wonderful, and we really want to see that change. But very quickly, constitutional rights of women.
Yeah, but to make that even more narrow, because Shazad spoke that domestic violence grew so much in the pandemic, there is an act actually which protects women against violence. Let us know about
Definitely. That was passed in 2016. It's called the Punjab Protection of Women Against Violence Act. Basically, under that act, if a woman is subjected to domestic violence at the hands of, let's say, her husband or someone from her in-laws, someone who lives in her family. So she can file a complaint to the police, and the police can at that very instant arrest that person and interrogate them.
That's wonderful. And but since you're a lawyer yourself, but you missed out on one point, which I think that you missed out on one point, that while subjecting women to, God forbid, since we were talking about it, to domestic violence, you mentioned husband and you mentioned in-laws. You never mentioned a brother, you never mentioned a mother, you never mentioned for that matter, a father. Because
does that mean it doesn't count?
No. It does count. It definitely.
That
was my bad on my
it's
part. It was bad on my part.
Okay.
Basically, anyone, I added at the end, anyone she lives with, anyone she's residing with, anyone who she is dependent on. It can be her mother, it can be her brother, it can be her father. Nobody
So
has the
let's
right
talk
to
about the process now. So you do need to take a proof or a witness with you and then report an FIR and then, I mean, just go straight up? How does it happen?
You straight up go to the police and you
Okay.
file a complaint, because the FIR.
And they listen to you?
Yes, it's the, obviously FIR stands for First Investigation Report.
Yeah.
Most of the
So-
time, there must be a bruise and a body, and they'll take the, there is a medical jurisprudence in our language.
Yes.
So there is a certain sort of acts in it. So especially in that situation, they'll take the, they identify your body, and there was a specific witness of your body. Your body is telling that something wrong happened to your body.
No, this is a very important point you've made. God forbid, how do you think that a woman, God forbid,
Yeah.
okay, let's see that the bruise is on the back or probably on the tummy or somewhere where a woman cannot expose and let people know that, okay, that's where the bruise is. So how do we go about it? Because
Yeah,
every
there
other
are-
police
so
station we
that's
go to,
why
we
we
do not
need-
have
yeah,
lady
yeah.
officers.
Under the law, it's a requirement that a woman has to be dealt with a women constable or a
Oh,
women police
perfect,
officer.
perfect.
Most women are not aware of this.
Right.
At the hands of men, they're harassed, and because they're not informed of the right under the law, that they can say no, I want to be dealt with by a women police officer.
So Kanwar, you're saying that straight up you can go and without having to deal with the men, you can ask that I need my women
Yes,
counsel.
because under the law, there is a requirement that in every area, every district, there has to be a women police station.
Definitely.
Even in Islamabad, there is a women police station.
Amazing, amazing.
Yes.
Now, these are such minor things that people don't know of. And I mean, even I'm shocked from my part, being in such a privileged position. There are times that when I'm listening to these things for the first time, like today. So, since we're really short on time as well, I want to cover up most of the things that we can. We did speak about violence specifically, but let's talk about other constitutional rights. For example, let's talk about right to education. Do you know that after the pandemic closes, as compared to boys, there are still millions, above 2 million girls who will never go back to school for so many different reasons? What can they do if they want to go back to school?
And that is extremely very unfortunate. But under the Constitution, there's a remedy that's also known as the Article 199,
Yeah.
where a person can file a petition in the High Court to protect his or her fundamental right. It's for men, it's for women, it's for guardians if they want to file a petition on behalf of children, minors, who might not know their fundamental rights that well. So I think Article 199 under the Constitution is a big, big helping hand for all those women out there who probably don't have a voice and they don't know how to protect their fundamental rights.
So what does it say? Let us know in detail.
Article 199 basically gives an individual, it doesn't
Okay.
even talk about a citizen, it talks about every individual who is within the vicinity of Pakistan.
Of the state, yes.
Yes, of the state, because if they're inside the state, they're within the boundary, the
Got it.
territory of Pakistan, they're a responsibility of the state.
Okay,
Right?
okay.
So every individual has a right to protect his or her fundamental right by filing an application in the High Court where they can point out which fundamental right has been infringed in what way.
And education is a
Yes.
fundamental right to
All right,
everyone. Got
and,
it.
and adding on to this conversation as well, just move back to Samia as well, because you wanted to speak about women in rural areas. There's one more problem with that, and that is that women in rural areas kind of work more than men do.
Yes.
Every time
Physical
you go to go over
labor,
there,
yes.
and you know that their income is unaccounted for. So how do you think that they can actually get the amount of money they have worked for? And not just that, even in urban areas where women work in offices, there's 22% disparity among, how much men are being
Wage,
paid and how
yes.
much women are being paid. So do you think that we are protected by the law in such kind of a situation as well?
I think the unfortunate thing is that you can file a petition for every, civil wrong which happens to you.
Got
You
it.
can ask for that. But the fact is that, in our society, we have to change our minds first. We have to talk about the every single particular body. Probably if you all see the situation in a court, like there is a female client and there is a male client, probably people go towards the male client. They thought that he had the money to pay us. People used to don't, take the, mileage. They are not giving the mileage to a woman to, file a suit or helping them in certain ways. This is the situation which is happening in every single place, not especially in the rural area, as well as in urban cities. Most probably, girls and boys, they are going to the certain places like offices, and people really choose the male because it's a male-centric by far, you know,
Yes.
to somehow, it's a sad part, but it's a male-centric
Society and
Yeah.
all sectors of the society as well. I mean,
Yeah.
even if you work in one sector of the society, being a female,
Yeah.
the work hours are yours. But after the work hours, you can't be a part of the boys' club, and you will never
Yeah,
be
of
a
course.
part of the
Well,
decision making.
Very quickly, one more thing, you know, because we're running short of time as well, and wanted your take on this as well. And we really do not want to get into the religious part of it because, you know, if
Yeah.
we see it according to the religion, obviously, you know, it's wrong. But other than that, you know, we recently saw that there was this case within university where students expressed to each other that they love each other, and that that the lady probably proposed to the
Proposed.
boy and they hugged. Now, let's come down to freedom of expression, you know, and the university expelled both of these students as well. Do you
Really?
think
I didn't know that.
under the constitution we have this freedom of expression that whoever we want to hug, we can hug, wherever we want to hug, we can hug? Let's talk about that as well.
Well, I'm not sure if there's
Freedom
a
of expression.
specific
No, let's
provision
talk about
under the
freedom
law.
of expression.
Or public display of
All right.
affection.
Public display, or I highly doubt that's a grey area in the law.
Isn't it?
There's no such
It's
provision.
it's not a
which
yes or
was-
no.
No, I think, you know,
I think,
religiously it might be wrong, but,
Yeah.
you know, they shouldn't have been expelled. You know,
Yeah,
their
I
studies
think
might have been
this-
put under consideration.
I
Yeah.
think this matter has come under a natural law. Natural law is allowed to give you a right of freedom. You are allowed to free. You are, you know, by natural law, you are free to do anything. You have a right of live. You have a right to eat. You have right to survive.
So you have
But-
the right to hug.
No, you.
Whoever you want.
I'm not
But
saying
why
this. I'm
not?
not saying this certainly.
I mean,
think-
only if the other person is ready to hug you back. I mean, only
Yes,
then.
but this is the basic, you know, we have to maintain our decorum within the society. We know our boundary.
Yeah.
We know how to
There's
draw a
certain-
line, how to cross it, and how to make it.
Okay.
So this is a certain rule which law cannot tell you.
Dictate, it
This is a
cannot.
society, your schools, your calling, your upbringing, and as well as your society,
But do
your
you
family.
think
within.
proposing is like crossing
Now, I
the line?
think they should have been
particularly-
given an opportunity to be heard. I don't
Yeah.
know. I think
Exactly.
according to the news, they were probably given an opportunity, but because they're children, they're
But
still
Hanva,
little.
it really bothers me. It really bothers me that one hug had a decision made in one day. Ek din mein they had a decision, and one rape
Because
takes
every
2
single,
years to have a decision.
Every
What
single
I don't
person have their own mind. We cannot change everybody's
That's-
mind.
but
But
I think
everybody
that's-
wants somebody to propose them, na? That's the problem. Yeah, they did it in front of the camera. Everybody wants a good proposal. Bouquets, you know, everybody wants it to be special. And usually it's women who want it to be special as well.
I think it's more about the public pressure that came down on the university, which
Exactly.
is why they probably, I'm not sure, but they were probably forced to act in a way.
That is true, huh?
Might be
Probably
they maintain the
forced
decorum
to.
of their university because that's an educated place and they have to maintain their you know
Yes.
I
decorum.
mean, I believe love is education as well. But thank you very much for being with us.
you.
You're very well handled as well. Thank you very
you
much
so
for kind of answering all our questions, even though that we know that it was your first time as well on television. But you guys did a great job
Yeah.
because you guys are really good at it. Wonderful.
Experts in their field. Ladies and gentlemen, we really hope this was informative for you because we love to inform you. We know that this channel specifically, oh yeah, and now I'm sure it even reaches in villages because this weekend I did check as well. So I really hope it makes a difference. I really hope it educates women who need to be educated about matters like this. If you still have any questions, queries, feedback about it, let us know please on our Facebook page with the name of,
World This Morning.
on Twitter,
World This Morning without a G.
on YouTube.
On YouTube, ladies and gentlemen, you look for PTV World, and alhamdulillah, on PTV World, this is the most viewed show, World This Morning.
Yes, please, you have to stay home, stay safe. You have to adhere, like literally stick to the mask so much that we don't even recognize what your face looks like. But this is for your own safety. Please sanitize continuously. We are literally back to where we were 1 year ago, so be safe, please.
1, 2, 3. Good morning.
Take care.